Yeah. Wonderful to be here speaking to you all. Have you all had a good day? Thank you. Fantastic. So, yes, I'm Rob from Standing on Giants, and I'll be asking the questions to Claire from Lenovo, who has joined us all the way from Dubai. Now, that is a long flight. Yeah, that's worth it.
Thanks, guys. The jet lag is real.
So we are here to talk about the Lenovo Legion Community EMEA, which won CMX's Best New Community of 2022. Whoop, whoop. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to reel off a few stats to get us started, Claire. So 117,000 members in the first 18 months, 80,000 posts. And in the Legion community, you like to use sort of gaming terminology. So 80,000. If you had that many Minecraft blocks, you could build 7 Eiffel Towers. I have here. 21 million post views. A return rate of 27%. So 1 in 4 members are returning to this community. 7 languages, 7 territories, but members from 186 countries. That must be more countries than are actually in EMEA, so that's pretty cool.
Not really, but
And then my favorite one of all, 80 million minutes the community have spent in Legion's community, which is 152 years, or 2.6 million games of League of Legends. So that's all very impressive, but take us back to over 18 months ago. Where did you start? You want to build a gaming community, which no one was asking for another gaming community, but you decide at Legion that you want to build one. Where did you start?
yeah, I think, I've heard a lot during the morning about like a top exec coming and saying we need a community. It was a similar situation. Somebody came and said, oh, we need a Legion community. But I think what I think we did really well is we took around 4 to 6 months to just say why. And I think that's the key point. And I really think that's one of the key success factors as to why we've done, the job that we have. So a quick thing, I don't know if there are any gamers in the room. Anybody gaming? No, okay. So there's this, anybody's children or cousins or nephews game. There's this perception that like a gamer is a teenager who wears a hoodie and is like trapped in the basement for like days because they don't want to come out and they just don't see daylight. But it's not actually like that. Gamers, there's from casual gamers to pro gamers. 50% of gamers are actually women, which is, people don't really understand that. And I think where I'm from in the Middle East, women had to log on to gaming sites, platforms, communities as men because they were harassed online, they were hit on, and a lot of like abuse to like, kind of like you can't do a good job because you're a female gamer, like what the hell do you know? And in the Middle East, culturally, I'm sure you can imagine, there's like, gender roles are a little bit more, let's say stereotypical than, a lot more Western countries. So that's really where we started. We said like, we don't want this to happen. And really from a gender perspective was the starting point, where we said we actually want to give people just want a game and just give them a safe environment and space in which to do that. And so that was really the starting point of the community. I think also language plays a big role because, I think we've heard a lot of examples about some great communities, in North America, which is great because it's all English. We've got Poland and Spain and Arabic, and we were actually the first gaming community who launched Arabic as a language. And that's like a massive thing, because it's not even the same characters, and I think for mostly the gender situation, but also just we wanted to communicate with people in the language in which they spoke and not just force English across everywhere. Those were kind of the 2 main reasons why we started.
Fantastic. And I know you were telling me earlier, while we were having a coffee, about focusing on age as well, and how, again, the stereotype is gamers are young, but actually I was telling you my parents sit there watching TV, playing solitaire, and they're in their 60s, so they're gamers. And then you came out with a fantastic anecdote. Tell them about this one.
Yeah, one of the biggest sort of countries within our gaming community are the Nordics, so Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and they're called the Silver Snipers. They're literally 60 and 70-year-old gamers who have literally silver hair and they attend our gaming events. They come, they game, they show up in an Adidas tracksuit. They've got our Legion devices, and they compete. Now, they don't always win, but that's not really the point. So yeah, exactly. Age was also a big thing. So I think the reason for being was so clear to us, and that I think everything else fell into place.
I think there's a great message about not listening too much to the dominant discourse of a particular industry, that actually there's probably a lot of white space to grow into. In this case, everyone who wasn't young male and wanting to play Call of Duty, and it's amazing that had been missed, really.
Exactly, and those are the people that need a community, because the people who are pro gamers or the 19-year-old dude in a hoodie, they've got people to talk to and they've got direction and help, but it's the others who actually need that forum or that space to communicate and get help along the way.
Absolutely. So you've got a really clear purpose, clear group of people that you're going after. How do you then go about getting the business on board and the different stakeholders?
With great difficulty. I think, to be honest, I think, so just a little bit about our structure, because I think it might be a bit unique. So I'm not a community manager, I'm a marketing director, and the community actually falls within our responsibility. We work with Standing on Giants, who are agency who help us manage the community, but we were very clear from the beginning we wanted it to be part of the marketing function, because that for us was a way of getting business buy-in, because we knew that if we were not necessarily day-to-day managing it ourselves, but overseeing it, we could then use the rest of our marketing tools to help drive acquisition, to help drive awareness, to help drive etc., so that we weren't having to not only get the product team on board, but then also beg the marketing team to put their dollars behind it, etc., etc. So I think that was one of the key things. But yeah, I think from the top down, there's always pushback on how many more laptops are you going to sell because of the community. And obviously we can't answer that. And actually, just a fun fact, it's called the Legion community, but there are people on the community that probably use our competitor devices, because that's not the purpose for us. We wanted to help gamers have a space where they can talk gaming no matter their gender, age, etc. And so even if they are our competitors, they're still very much welcome in our community. So with the business, look, I think my biggest advice is, and I know there were some great presentations this morning on ROI and how do we do this. At the end of the day, I have to sell more laptops. And that's not going to change. And I think my advice would be, or not advice, you guys are more pros than I am at community building, but I think you have to align yourself to those business goals somewhere, somehow. And even if it's not a direct link, I think there has to be a correlation to say, okay, your broad goal is this, the role of the community is going to help in X, Y, and Z, and the link to it is that, and it may not be that direct link that one extra member equals one laptop sold, but you have to at least be in the same realm of conversation of those ROI KPIs so that the business does invest and that you're not just, just an uphill battle the whole way.
Absolutely. And I think you showed some great long-term thinking there, in that if you're welcoming into this community people who are using your competitors, but they get that sense of belonging and the people that they play together are other Legion members, one day they will buy a laptop, right?
That's the theory, and hopefully
exactly.
ours. And I think the way that we're doing that is, we've really tried to, for example, we just launched, no, not just in May, it feels like yesterday, but we just launched our new lineup of gaming laptops for the year. And so we had an event in Italy at Spazio Lenovo, which is one of our flagship Lenovo-owned stores, and we invited the top engaged community members from the Italian community to that event. It didn't cost us a single cent, but they got to see, the line of laptops with the media. So before even they were in a retail outlet. And that's quite a big deal, and it meant so much to them that we got some really nice feedback from them, on how that made them feel. And our theory, and it's not so much a theory because we're seeing the results pay off, is that feeling will get them talking about our brand on our behalf, and that then hopefully some of those competitors who may be in our community at the moment will eventually start, converting, let's say.
Absolutely. So taking us back again, so strategies in place, the business is bought in, how, and I think it's really interesting how you talked about very much part of the marketing function, which I think helped you with my next question. How did you go about acquiring those members from scratch?
We tried a whole bunch of different things, and it really is just a, do and learn kind of a situation. But I think where we saw the most traction was using influencers. So we use influencers, largely in our marketing strategy. So what we started doing is taking those top influencers who a lot of the time are on retainer contracts for you as a brand anyway. So again, it wasn't an incremental investment from our side, but just reaching out to them and getting them on something that we'd already paid them for as, a paid sponsored post for X, and just getting them to mention the community at the bottom. Some of them put it in their bio, like just the URL. And when we started doing that, because these guys have got millions of followers and they're super credible in the gaming environment, we saw a lot of people and a lot of traffic being driven towards the community. So influencers and utilizing existing influencers was probably one of our biggest, let's say, acquisition channels. I think, good old competitions and swag and all that stuff, it's quite, let's say, rudimentary, but it works. But definitely where we saw the biggest traction was using our influencers, and getting them to kind of spread the word for us.
Fantastic. One of which I know was G2 Esports, so tapping into the esports world.
Yeah, exactly. We sponsor, we're one of the sponsors of one of the biggest esports gaming sort of organizations in the world, especially in Europe. Yeah, exactly. And just getting them to, talk about the community, getting some of their players to talk about the community. Again, they're on our retainers. It's not an incremental investment, but just using whatever tools really we had. Trying to keep investments down because we don't want it to be paid. We don't want it to look like an advert. We want it to be a community and a genuine, a credible sort of touch point.
I remember those first discussions where you actually got the members of the G2 Esports team to participate in the community and all their fans coming in and, chatting to them and, giving a bit of banter, as we'd say in the UK. It was really great to kind of get that engagement going.
But sorry, Rob, that's actually a really important point because one of the things, again, just not losing sight of what you're trying to achieve and why. At the end of the day, it's a gaming community and gamers want to game. And so, again, you can get so sort of, obsessed with, okay, I need X number of fans or X million of fans and I need this engagement rate and I need all of these KPIs. But at the end of the day, if you just come back to why we exist, which is we want gamers to connect and gamers want a game. For example, getting our G2 Esports esports players to host game nights on our platform. Now, we would have done that anyway, but we would have hosted it on somewhere else. But just driving traffic to the community for existing activities, I think, has really worked well.
And there's a load of juicy stuff that then sits underneath that, like, the data and they remember and
Exactly.
they can come back and, and all of that wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
So we've touched on it already. So we've started acquiring members from all these fantastic channels, but then it's important to keep them there so that they're not just coming as a kind of once and done, like coming for a contest and then leaving. So how have you approached engagement and what's worked and what hasn't?
Yeah, I think coming back to the sort of Italy example of I think we're trying to have a community first mindset. I think it's a no-brainer, but it's not as easy as it is. It's not easy to execute that because you get pulled in 500 different directions with different business priorities. But that really is the key. So I think, for example, we have another gaming tournament, Intel Extreme Masters, and actually we were really stretched for resource to have somebody from our team go and host the event. And we were sitting there thinking, like, how are we going to do this? It's over summer. I think the speaker before mentioned the whole of Italy doesn't work over summer. So my team are in Italy. So this was all a real situation. And then we reached out to, our community and said, can we use people from the German community? Can they go and actually run the event for us? So we got our top engaged members from Germany, sent them to IEM, which is Intel Extreme Masters, and they kind of did the streaming, and kind of the whole sort of posting about the event on our behalf. So I think it's things like that not only getting them there, but keeping them engaged. And, you'd be surprised how just getting giving them that opportunity, what it means to a community member. It really means the world. And just simple things like badges and surprise and delight and recognition and saying thank you so much for doing that. These are small, small things, but they really go a long way.
Absolutely. And then I think the other thing that you've done that's so impressive is those kind of like special moments are sort of underpinned by this always-on engagement from the community management team. Could you tell us a bit about that and how that works?
Yeah, I think that's a key part, and I know I've heard a lot about resourcing over the last day too, and there's probably usually maybe one person who's trying to drive it all by themselves, which I completely understand. But I think we're luckily in a situation where we have community managers who are very locally relevant. So, for example, we have someone in Italy who speaks Italian. We've got an Arabic-speaking person who looks after the whole of the Middle East. And I think that localized, being able to relate to the people that you're speaking to is a huge part of that day-to-day engagement that, for me, is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. And it's all very well us talking kind of from a top level about acquiring members, about engaging them. What really matters at the end of the day is what they think about it. So
yeah.
Has feedback been positive? I mean, spoiler alert, it has, but tell us about what some of the members have been telling you.
Yeah, I think the general sort of theme... Thank you. Thanks. The general sort of theme is that it feels like a family. And I think that's a really nice feeling for us to have as a brand because, technology can be quite dry as a topic, to be honest, and very functional. And so the fact that the community is helping us put a little bit of soul and sort of emotion into our category is amazing. So people really talk about the family feeling and how, it's been quite inclusive. And that D&I and inclusivity piece is really important to us as a brand, but was the starting point of the community. And I think, sorry, I've got my paper here because my phone died. It's so 1985, but I'm going to read you a quote, just because it's my favorite quote. Sorry, I'm going to read you a quote because it's my favorite quote, for example, and these are verbatim quotes from our community members. My favorite part of the Legion community is the connection. Meeting people all over the world who share similar values and interests never gets old. I've never felt this inspired before. And I think that's really cool for us too, is that we do have that, we've got 7 countries, 7 territories, 7 languages, and like you said, a whole bunch more countries aside of that who've joined in. And I think people love that sense of community. We've got someone in Saudi Arabia who wants to game with somebody in the Nordics. And I think that is a super important element to our whole community and how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're, we talk about this a lot, what we're looking to achieve is belonging, and hearing feedback like that is just fantastic. It makes it, I'm feeling quite emotional. Maybe it's the jet lag.
Keep it together.
Yeah, keep it together, Rob, come on. I'd like to go a little bit off topic now. We've heard a lot about the Legion gaming community, but could you tell us about what your favorite community is that you're a member of, and why?
Very boring, but so I live in Dubai, and it's a very most of the people who live in Dubai are not from Dubai. So my favorite community is called British Mums Dubai. And it's just a community of mums who are trying to all figure it out, and we all kind of live away from home. So it's just kind of giving you those everyday tips on, like, your kid's sick, where do you get the medicine from? And I know it sounds so lame, but it's really, really important. I don't know why I'm getting quite emotional, but it's really,
Sorry,
really
I set you off.
Yes. No, it's
honestly.
Just, when you live away from home, it's important to have that support base, Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Right, we need to open it up to the floor,
I've got a fun fact.
Oh, go.
So I've got newfound sort of respect for all the community managers that I've kind of heard about and learned from over the last day. And I do a lot of reading on, and I'm sure you guys have seen those articles on, like, what jobs will exist in the future that didn't exist in the past. I think community management, it said in the last 20 years, wasn't even on the face of the earth. And it's just one of those jobs that is not only now here, but will be kind of exponentially more important as the years go by. So just a shout out to all the community managers. And yeah, you guys are doing important stuff. So that was super interesting when I read that. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. So, I mean, yeah, when I was at university, being a community manager wasn't a You know, it wasn't a thing. And, you know, when I first started in community, my first job was literally writing funny tweets for people. And people had started paying, you know, businesses started paying for that. And then you kind of grew into this whole community space, you know. And I'm sure we think with our children, what are the jobs that don't exist now that are going to exist in the future?
Drone flyer was another one.
Drone flyer.
Just putting it out there.
Metaverse AI something or other, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Claire, for fantastic answers. We've got a good amount of time for questions, so I'd love to throw it out to the audience. Yes.
Hi.
Oh, wait for a microphone. Sorry, Jamie.
As you were getting started, what were those key KPIs to kind of let you and your team know that you were on the right path and it was working? And then what are you thinking as far as KPIs kind of looking forward now that you're more established?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, you know, a lot of the discussions that we've kind of heard along the morning have been about scalability, and I think that's come up as an important topic. And, you know, I've sat here and I've said to you, the most important thing for us was purpose and what we stand for. But at the same time, you know, having a discussion with the broader business, because funding is needed, not only in terms of resources, but in terms of budget, it is a different discussion if you say we have 5,000 members versus 5 million members, you know. So it's important. So whilst it's not our primary KPI, we are looking at the moment, tripling our member base, basically. So that is definitely one of our objectives. But we do want to do it at a pace and sequence that doesn't lose what we stand for, but it is for sure a KPI. Engagement rate is our number one. So our number one KPI is engagement rate. I'd say our number two KPI is total number of members. And then, yeah, I think we're looking at broadening that out and seeing what else. But at the moment, we really don't want to overcomplicate it with too many things. We literally just have those two KPIs for now, which is... And I think, you know, another very mundane KPI, but it's just, of course, we've got a great team of community managers, but just, you know, how they're responding and the quality of response and the time that it's taking them to respond is also really important to us, that's seamless, let's say. But it's almost like a category passport factor. It just has to be there, and then the other stuff's on top. But the scalability one's interesting because, you know, everyone's saying it doesn't really matter how many members you have, it's the quality of engagement, which is true. But when it comes to funding and business buy-in, it does make a difference. As, you know, sad or not sad.
And there's different, and there's sort of almost tiers of what you can look at there. So you have you have the membership, you have the engaged members, you have the viewers of the community, right? The lurkers, we all know about our lovely lurkers who have value. But then it's, you know, but what is the value, you know, in communicating that? Yeah. Have we got some more, any more questions?
Yes.
Lovely. Oh, thank you.
I think I'm done after this. So I've seen some gaming communities, and to the point that you made before, they can be pretty rough for women. And given your D&I focus here, how do you respond to bad behavior as part of the community? Like, what do those guidelines look like?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and that was really important to us. And you're right; it's quite aggressive, and that just is not who we are as a brand. And you know, we just didn't want anything to do with that. I think we've been really lucky that the way that we've set it up, we've kind of made that clear from the beginning, just in various different touch points that we've used, that this is really what the community is for, and we've kind of communicated that purpose out. But, you know, we do have, I think our community managers would literally kick people out of the community if they did breach any of those things. Like, we would just literally, in a very nice, polite way, say this is really not the place for you for these reasons, and we've kind of given them that mandate. I don't think we've had to do that yet because everyone's been super supportive and really, really nice. But if it did come down to that, we would be quite brutal just because we believe so fundamentally that is just not acceptable to us. And we'll lose people for that, by the way. You know, I think there are some bigger gaming communities out there where maybe people do want to be a bit more competitive and that suits them, but that's fine to us because we just believe so strongly in that we just can't accept that. And I think, you know, one of the things that I have taken note of, because we're so grateful to have won the CMX Community of the Year award, but, you know, we're not perfect and we've still got improvement areas. And one of the things I've noted down over the last 24 hours, or last day,
do we know what time it is
8
now?
hours, yeah. I'm so confused. But just this morning being here is, you know, doing some surveys back to our community on this topic and many others, but just to see how it's going and how people are feeling. So I think touching base back with the members, because now we've got a critical mass, I think is super important. So that's one of the notes I've taken down. So thanks for asking that question, but it's a good reminder to us to loop back and actually see not what we think, but what they think. Yeah.
If I could add something, if I may. Oh, we've got a
Please.
question over there, but while the mic's coming to you. So the community managers, we talk about an educational approach as opposed to a moderation approach. So everyone who comes in is educated around the guidelines. But there's an interesting anecdote in that we've branched out from the forum platform into Discord, and we've noticed that the natural behavior that people come into in the Discord is quite different to the forum, actually. And I think it must be because they are used to a slightly different environment in other gaming communities on Discord. So we're working now to make sure that we get the same kind of positive, inclusive engagement in the Discord as well. But yeah, education over moderation, and then we haven't had to deal with anything too dramatic, I think, so far.
Maybe we can send the silver snipers in to sort anybody out.
Oh, yes.
If needed.
No one's going to mess with the silver snipers, are they?
Exactly. Exactly.
Hello. So you
Hi.
mentioned you're looking into scaling now and tripling the member base of the community. So I was wondering also, like, in this process of scaling, how will you scale the setup, the basic setup you have now, like programs, super users, and how are you looking? Because you also said, like, you're looking at a specific pace to do this, and whether you think there is something to be sacrificed along the way in this growth, exponential growth.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I'm going to start off, and then Rob, if you want to kind of add anything from your side. But I think a couple of things. We've been really, ourselves and Standing on Giants have been really prescriptive on when someone joins the community to really give them a nice warm welcome and like, how, so thank you so much for joining, etc. One of the things we kind of are nervous about is that, and we've kind of, because we're at 118,000 members already, is, sometimes we have 5,000 people joining over a couple of days because of certain activities that we've run. And sometimes it's difficult to still maintain that, but that's something that we don't want to lose. So it's really important that we do manage it in a way, but that's a risk, right? And it's something that we're thinking through how to manage. The other thing, sorry. The other thing is, when I say triple, I'd say our goal within the next 12 months is to double, and then that would be more of like a sort of the following year, so it's almost like a 2 to 4 year plan. But yeah, I think it's about not doing everything all at once and just pacing and sequencing it out so that we don't lose what we stand for. But at the same time, we do have to reach that scalability. And yeah, I think like just those simple things like welcoming people to the community are probably the things that will sometimes be overlooked first when when you've got so many people joining at once, and we just can't afford to do that. But now that because we're a year and a half old, I think we now know what activities are going to drive mass acquisition at the same time. So we can kind of spread those activities out now a little bit better than in the beginning, because we were just doing stuff and kind of learning and figuring it out. I think we've got like a base of what drives what in terms of what activity drives what acquisition, and now we can kind of plan things out a little bit more. So yeah, Rob, I don't know if you want to kind of jump in with anything.
Well,
on
I
that.
think you mentioned super users as well, which we call highly engaged members, or HEMs. I think because at some time in the history, super user sounded a bit kind of drug addicty. I think that is one of the keys to scale, and it takes a while to increase the level of commitment of those members to know that you can trust them to be a super user or a HEM, and then they will be our friends in covering off some of these activities that our community managers can't do, or actually it's not even that, it's that we want the HEMs or the super users to be doing these things, right? Because we know when we make connections between the gamers, that's when the scale is going to get really exciting. You're going to get like this compound interest effect, well, it's the old pay it forward thing, isn't it? One person, 3 people, those 3 people go to 3 people, and that's when we'll get the scale.
But it's such a good point that you bring up, because it's something that we're kind of just touching the surface on at the moment, but that is really the next big phase for us. At the moment, for example, if we have a gamers night or we have like a key sort of engagement activity on the community, we're driving that as a brand, like from ourselves. What we want to get to is a point where our super users or HEMs are actually doing that for us, so that it takes less resource from our side, and it's almost like they're brand advocates, so much so that they're actually speaking to the rest of the community as if we as a brand were speaking to them directly. So we haven't quite cracked that yet, but I think that's the next big step for us to do. So that is such an important point. Yeah, thanks for that.
Definitely.
Maybe time for one more?
Yeah, have we got one more? We got one more? Yes, Carla. This isn't a planted question. I just know Carla. She's a legend. You should talk to her.
Yes, I'm Carla. I work in Meta now. I'm a former Neon Giants employee, so that's why I'm here. Yay! First, congratulations on winning the CMX Community of the Year. That's a very big thing to celebrate. I think my question is just a little bit back. How do you, as a business, choose gaming as a vertical to invest in a community? Or do you have plans to expand it and go into other verticals?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So actually, as Lenovo, we have 3 communities. We have one for small, medium businesses because they need a lot of support, and people want to ask each other questions. We have one in education because again, we have teachers and head teachers as members and users of that group, and then we have gaming. I think the one that I specifically look after is gaming. So let me answer you on that. I think it really did start off, so it's actually a good question, because when I said to you it started off with us, wanting this safe environment where people felt included and it actually started off with the business. So saying, okay, within our portfolio of PCs, one of the fastest growing segments around the world is gaming. And then when we dug into it a little bit better, a bit more, we realized that okay, we sell PCs in traditional retailers on Amazon, but with gaming, it was a different thing. There were different people using the product. They had different needs. They were just different to our normal PC users. And so putting both of those things together took us to the space that if we had to choose a community where we really wanted gamers to talk to gamers, it was people to talk to people. Gaming was the one for that, because as a business, it was probably the area where we had the least expertise in terms of the end user, not the technology, of course, that's what we do. But for gamers, there were just a unique audience that we didn't quite understand. So we thought the best way to do that is to have a community where we could actually learn and get to know them firsthand, as opposed to, guys, if you think of us as a business, a lot of the time, we don't have a direct relationship with our end users. It's through our retailers. And so we don't know who uses our products necessarily. And this is one way where we can actually have that one-to-one conversation directly with somebody who uses a gaming laptop. And that is, priceless for us as an organization. That's a really good question. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope
right,
you've
Thanks,
enjoyed
guys.
it.
I appreciate your
We're
time.
over time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Claire. Thanks, Rob.